Birds are among the most misunderstood pets on the planet. A lot of what people were taught about keeping them comes from old habits, not from how birds actually live, communicate, or cope in captivity. That gap matters. Birds are not simple cage animals. They are built for social contact, movement, and constant signals that humans often miss. And when we miss them, the damage is not always loud at first. Sometimes it looks like a well-behaved bird. Sometimes it looks like a bird that has simply stopped trying. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why this fails and how to fix it in your own home. Rule number 1 is the belief that seeds are natural food, so a bowl full of seeds must be enough. This idea survives because it looks logical. Birds eat seeds in nature. Humans see a bird crack a seed and assume that should be the whole diet. But natural is not the same as complete, and birds are not one single type of animal. There are about 10,000 bird species on Earth, and their feeding habits vary widely. The research from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology shows how much people focus on feeding birds. More than 50% of Americans take part in bird feeding. That tells you how normal food-based assumptions have become. The problem is that feeding is easy, feeding well is harder. The rule to unlearn is that visible eating equals proper nutrition. A bird can eat eagerly and still be on a poor diet. If you were taught that seeds should be the base of daily feeding, that belief deserves a hard second look. Rule number 2 is that the cage is their real home. For a lot of people, buying a bird also means buying a small space and treating that space like the whole world the bird needs. But birds are made for much more than perching in one spot. Their behavior tells us that. Research notes show that birds use a wide range of social actions, territorial displays, and communication signals that can seem strange to humans. Those signals only make sense when you remember that birds are active, aware animals, not decoration. Even wild birds have shown how flexible they are. A study in the Journal of Urban Ecology in 2020 found that some urban species adapted strongly to city life because food was available. That does not mean confinement is fine. It means birds work hard to adapt when they must. Adaptation is not the same as thriving. A cage can be a safe resting place. It should not become a full-time prison simply because the bird has learned to survive in it. Rule number 3 is one of the most misunderstood forms of the affection. Many owners assume that if a bird enjoys touch, then more touch must mean more love. That is a human idea, not a bird one. Birds use social behavior and mating behavior in ways that often do not match human logic. The research notes make that plain. Social interactions and mating rituals can defy what humans expect, and those expectations need to be unlearned. This is where people get into trouble. They read acceptance as permission for any kind of petting. They think a bird settling down means the bird understands the human intention behind it. Birds do not judge touch by human romance. They judge it through bird behavior. If you want trust, you have to stop treating a bird like a furry pet and start respecting the way birds read contact. Rule number 4 is the mirror myth. It sounds harmless. A lonely bird sees a reflection, so people assume it feels less alone. But that idea depends on a very human story about what the bird thinks it is seeing. The better lesson from bird science is that perception matters, and bird perception is not the same as ours. Birds can even see ultraviolet light, which humans cannot see. Their world is filled with signals we miss. That should make us more careful, not less, about assuming they understand mirrors the way we do. Birds are also highly tuned to social cues. They communicate with sound, posture, and body language that vary by species. A reflection that never responds like a real bird can feed confusion instead of comfort. The rule to unlearn is simple. Just because an object grabs a bird's attention does not mean it supports the bird's mental health. Rule number 5 is the belief that biting means the bird is mean, bad, or aggressive by nature. This one falls apart the moment you stop looking only at the bite and start looking at everything before it. Mainstream bird behavior research points to communication, not random malice. The research here says birds communicate through vocalizations and body language, and that understanding those signals can deepen our interaction with them. That is the consensus. Birds are signaling animals. When people say a bite came out of nowhere, what often really happened is that the human did not notice the warnings or did not know what they meant. This is where the phrase body language matters. Leaning away, changes in posture, stillness, or agitation are not small details. They are part of the conversation. The different perspective that many owners need is this. The bite is often not the first message. It is the message that finally worked. Rule number 6 is that a quiet bird is the perfect bird. For people who want a pet that fits neatly into a human routine, silence sounds ideal. But birds are social and vocal by design. The same research that shows wide variation across species also shows how central communication is to bird life. Calls, contact sounds, and visual signals are part of how birds stay connected and aware. If you expect a bird to act like a silent ornament, you are asking it to stop doing one of the things that makes it a bird. There's also a wider lesson here. In 2019, findings published by the American Bird Conservancy and reported in Science by Rosenberg and others showed that North America lost nearly 3 billion birds over the past 50 years. That was about a 29% decline in total bird populations. A world with fewer birds becomes a world with less birdsong. Since Rachel Carson's Silent Spring in 1962, people have understood that bird voices are not background noise. Their presence tells us something about health, life, and survival. Silence is not always peace. Sometimes silence is a warning. Rule number 7 is that dominance and punishment work. People bring this idea from dog training myths, old school parenting, and plain frustration. They think the bird has to be shown who is in charge. But the research notes point us in another direction. Birds show varied social structures across species, and their behavior often breaks human assumptions. That matters because owners often force a simple power story onto an animal that is not using that story at all. If a bird already lives in a home where every need depends on a human, then yelling forced isolation or fear-based handling does not teach respect. It teaches danger. Bird care should move with the best pattern we already see in the research, which is communication. Understand the signals, respect the species, build trust through repeated safe contact. That is not softness. It is accuracy. There is a bigger picture behind all 7 of these rules. Humans have a long history of deciding what birds are for us, instead of asking what life is like for them. In the late 1800s, growing conservation movements started pushing back against habitat destruction and hunting. That work helped lead to the Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918. In 2023, conservation efforts increased again as governments and non-government groups responded to declining bird populations, including habitat restoration and protection efforts in the United States. Those public changes reflect a private truth, too. Respect for birds starts when control stops being the goal. If you live with a bird, unlearning these rules changes everything. The relationship stops being master and captive. It becomes something closer to a real partnership with an intelligent animal that experiences the world in ways we do not. A bird is not being difficult when it acts like a bird. The real problem begins when we ask it not to. Share which rule surprised you most and which one you had to unlearn yourself.